I get a lot of questions from people about how to start running solo sessions for themselves, and even people who have, or maybe even especially people who have a lot of experience playing D&D or other RPGs in a group, almost have more of an obstacle to doing it because it's hard to envision how you could do it solo. I don't have a lot of experience playing D&D or RPGs in a group, I'll say, and maybe that's why it's easier for me to envision doing it solo. I decided just on a whim to go back to the beginning, and I have here Dungeon Module B1 in Search of the Unknown by Mike Carr. This is an introductory module for character levels 1 to 3, and it has a copyright of 1979 and 1981 TSR Hobbies. It is paired with the basic D&D the D&D basic set. It's especially designed as an instructional aid for beginning dungeon masters and players, specifically created to enable new dungeon masters to initiate play with a minimum of preparation. It's a special instructional module, and you may, if you're familiar with this, the history of this game, know that Dungeon Module B2, which I also have here, is perhaps more well known, The Keep on the Borderlands by this fellow Gary Gygax. And if this works out, maybe I'll get to that. But I really wanted to start with this and just walk you through how I'm going to, I haven't done this before, so I will show you what I'm actually doing here. And again, without, well, a couple of disclaimers. First of all, this is about the most visual interest you're going to get here in this video. This is going to be pen and paper. I'll get some graph paper out. There's some line drawings in here. You'll be seeing those, and I've got my colorful dice. But if you are, and I also found one of my oldest 10-siders here, which you can barely see. So if I have call for a 10-sider, I'm going to use this to try to use something contemporary to the rule set. But if you're looking for something with more visual interest, now is the time to find something else. We've got also my printout of the Holmes rules. These are from '77, and these may come into play, I'm not sure. And I've also got the basic set rules here. This is just the table of contents from them that I will be referring to as on an as-needed basis. But the focus here is really going to be, and here is the title page from the basic rule book to show you all the credits here. The first copyright is 1974, and as mentioned, the Holmes rules here I have as well. So, getting back to this, we are learning here that this material is presented in a manner that was intended to walk the beginning DM through the creation of a dungeon, and it's an interesting explanation here of what is considered to be a good assortment of typical features which players can learn to expect, including some interesting tricks and traps. And we have mysterious pools, lots of doors, a water pit trap, teleport rooms, magical treasures, of course. And there is explanation of how we prepare for this, and I think as a side note, I'm certainly not going to go through this here, if you are interested in doing any type of solo adventures for yourself, reading these kinds of things, especially from back in the day, can be very illuminating in terms of what to think about for yourself and what to possibly prepare. The question of time here is an interesting one because I've mentioned this in many of my videos. I'm always struggling about management of time and how to put constraints on the action and how to make sure that I'm moving the action forward. In here, it's not a lot of instruction because it says the DM should monitor the passage of time as he or she sees fit. Keeping in mind that exploring, examining does take up considerable time. In this situation, I think I'm going to skip over the experience for a moment. There's going to be the Wandering Monster roll, and it is somewhere coming up here. It's telling us, actually there's a contradiction in here, because here it's telling us to check every second turn with a 1 in 6 roll. So on a 1, say, you encounter a wandering monster, and then you roll on this table. Later on somewhere, and I won't thumb through to find it, I noticed that it said once every third turn you are to roll for a wandering monster. So I'll probably go with once every third turn. I don't know, but that's a different type of time. I'm going to institute something for the passage of time in terms of when a party can heal, and this is what I'm going to try to do. I'm taking these dominoes and I'm going to put them in a container, and I will be drawing the dominoes. I'm going to take out the blank one. I'm going to be drawing the dominoes throughout the game. The sum total of what I get on the domino is going to be how many rounds of action need to pass before my characters can heal. And the healing rule I'm using is coming from 3.5 and maybe elsewhere, where they're going to get to roll their hit die plus their constitution modifier to regain those hit points. But they won't be able to do that until a certain amount of this has passed. So in this case, the lower domino, this would be the best one to draw if they were, especially if they were low in hit points, but they could be doing this for up to 12 rounds. And what a round is, you'll see as we go. Is this going to work? I don't know. I don't know anything about the statistical numbers on dominoes and how this adds up. Is this different than just rolling, say, in the past I've done something like rolling a D8 or a D10, depending on how difficult I want it to be, or D12 or whatever, and taking that number. But I just thought this would be a different, something different to do. So that's how time and healing is going to work. This is just coming from something I'm putting together and bringing here. It's not really explicitly in the module here. And again, the wandering monsters, I just found it says here, check every second turn, and I mentioned to you somewhere else it says every third, but I'll probably go with every second turn. I will be also taking from, in terms of my characters, I'm not going to be rolling up characters. I'm going to the back here where provided for the DM, after, here are the credits. We can take a look at the credits here that are at the back, and we've got some NPC character development here, personalities, attitude, courage, disposition, loyalty, and some classes of henchmen and hirelings. I'm not sure whether they explicitly are provided for in the module when they come in. If not, I'm going to, as I go, create a situation where some NPCs do arrive. Maybe if I'm rolling on a wandering monster table or wandering on a monster option at 1 every X times, that monster is going to be an NPC instead. We'll see. I have to figure that part out. This is a little bit on the fly. This is certainly not a totally worked out system. In terms of the characters that I will be running, I'm going to use the pre-generated characters that come for the DM, or actually for the player here. This is the last page of the module, and we have a player's list of potential characters. Listed here are 12 characters of each of the 4 character classes, showing the name and the race, and then it tells you the Dungeon Master has a more complete listing of each character's ability scores and other information. I'm just going to go totally random here. It's a D12 roll. We'll have a party of 4. I had thought maybe I would do a party of 3 just for ease, but I'll go with a party of 4, and we'll just do this right now, getting at least just the names of our characters. I had considered not going totally random because I don't like playing humans, but be that as it may, we'll start with our cleric and find out who this cleric is, and this is cleric number 5. Seaful the Unforgiving. Well, I like that name. And what I'm going to do is note down the names, and then I'm going to come back off camera. I will get together the character sheets because there's a little more information then is provided here that we're going to need. All right, so we've got Seaful the Unforgiving. That doesn't sound very clerical to me, but he is going to be our cleric. And let's see what type of fighter, dwarf, halfling we're going to get. So we're rolling on this table here. We got a 4. That is Zelfan the dwarf. Great. Love dwarves. Zelfan the dwarf will be joining Seaful the Unforgiving on our magic user. Let's hope we get an elf. Whoop. All right. Well, I'll have to re-roll that. Try to roll it on here. What did we get? Came off screen. 9. We did not get a Dwelf. Oh, we got Trebeles, the Boy Magician. I kind of like that. The Boy Magician. He is a human. And finally, we're going to get a Thief, and let's see what we get. Estrazo, the Thief. And all right, so we can see here, just paging back, that we have the stats here. So, Estrazo is our thief. So we have our basic strength, intelligence, wisdom, constitution, dexterity, and charisma stats. However, we're going to need, and I've got, I think I'm going to be using these character sheets. These come from Holmes, but they should have what we need. So I will complete this. I'm going to need to fill in more information based on the rule set to come up with my what I'm carrying here and all things like that. But I will do that off camera, of course. Here we are with the trinkets table, and that's a D100 roll. And I am going to, we're going to do our cleric first. So I guess I'm really in need here. We're going to try this. This is going to work. I don't know if this was going to work. It's so small. All right, so we're rolling for our cleric's trinket. 97. And our cleric is going to have a tiny mechanical crab or spider that moves about when it's not being observed. And our Zelfan the dwarf is going to have 8. A small idol depicting a nightmarish creature that gives you unsettling dreams when you sleep near it. All right. We will see how these things may or may not come into play. Our boy magician, what does he have? He has a brass ring that never tarnishes. Okay. And finally, Esta Zoe, our whoever that is, forgotten already, is going to be carrying a hilt from a broken sword. That's 58. All right. We will see how, whether, or if, or when these things come into play. Sometimes when I do this, I forget about them. They never come into play. Sometimes they add just a little bit of suggestion for me at a moment moving through, because what I will be doing, as you'll see, is using this basic structure of this dungeon to travel through, but I'm also going to be creating a little bit of a story here. And while I have not looked through the dungeon that closely, because I want to retain some of the sense of surprise, I have seen and looked through, as I'm showing you here, enough that on room 8 is the wizard's workroom. So what I'm working with right now, at least my thought process at the moment, is going to be having my party enter this dungeon, and their goal is to get to the wizard's workroom because they are a relatively weak party. They need to get to this wizard's workroom to gain some items that are there to strengthen themselves. I'm not going to say level up because I'm not following leveling procedures here, but as the story unfolds, we will see that's going to be the first segment of their adventure, and their immediate goal is to get to that workroom and to get some kind of benefit from that. And as we move through the adventure, we'll see what that benefit might possibly be. So I'm going to fix up my characters on these sheets. I think I'm still going to be using these sheets, and come back and send them through. This is my timekeeping experiment. We'll see how it works. We are going to draw a random domino out. So per what I'm doing, there's going to be 7 rounds of action that will occur before the party can rest and heal. Well, what is a round of action? Good question. I haven't yet figured that out. It's not a round of combat. That is definitely not a round of combat. So there's going to be, like, combat is going to be an action. I don't know. We'll see. But anyway, that's what we're working with right now. All right, I've fleshed out some of these characters, and I'll just go through these a bit. Let me hasten to say a couple points. First of all, this is a little bit on the fly. I haven't even worked out certain things yet about how I'm going to be using oracles, or even 100% what I'm going to be doing in terms of traps and some other things that aren't fleshed out enough in this rule set, which I'm trying to stick to as much as possible. Also, I've just off camera filled in the pre-existing stats for my characters and noted the adjustments to the rolls, if any. Noted the save throws. I've taken the dragon out, and when we get to the monsters, I'll show you what I did there, but I put this in just to have it. Maybe there'll be a dragon later on. And I gave some armor to those who could have it, as well as everybody got 1 weapon, and then a couple of other things. I was going to do a trinket roll. I realize now I didn't do that. I like to give trinkets out at the beginning. Well, I'm not going to do that this time. So here is my fighter, and he's got an AC of 5 and 5 hit points. My cleric is very old, and it kind of shows. He's coming in at level 3, and indeed he's got his 3 spells that he can cast, Light Wounds, Protection from Evil, and Remove Fear. But he doesn't have very much attributes that are going to give him any types of benefits. In fact, his strength is going to be -1 on his hit damage. He is equipped with chainmail and a shield, and of course he has his Raise the Undead skills if they come to be. And we've got Ezra Zoe the Thief with an armor class of 5 and just 3 hit points, wearing leather armor, and his standard thieving abilities directly from the rule set. He's going to be a ranged fighter with a longbow there. I'm not going to be keeping track of his weaponry and things like that. If I was just playing by myself, I probably would do that, but when I'm filming, things get complicated, and I make a lot of mistakes anyway. As those of you who watch my videos know, it's difficult to do this while filming and editing and stuff, so I'm just going to say he's got infinite arrows, whatever. And I've got this boy magician, and he has an AC of 9, and again, as a reminder, in this set, higher is worse. He's got 3 hit points and not much, no armor at all, which gives him the AC of 9, and he's got his dagger. He does have 1 spell, a charm spell. And those are the people who, as we enter into this room, which is the kitchen. And now we can go to the standard sort of sequence of play that will be happening here. Let me read you first the room description. This is a kitchen. The food preparation area for the complex is a very long room with a variety of details. At the southwest corner of the room are 2 cooking pits, each large enough to cook an animal as large as a deer. One of the pits is slightly larger than the other. Both are about 3 feet in depth. They're full of ash and charred remains. There's a chimney leading upward, but its small size prevents further investigation. Long tables line each wall, and there are scattered containers on them, some upturned, with spilled contents moldering on the tabletop. Spoiled food all around very inviting. One chunk of moldy cheese is particularly noxious as a fuzzy green growth covers its entirety. Hanging from above are a variety of utensils, and some other of these are scattered about on the floor of the room, pots and pans of various sizes. There's a large cast iron kettle suspended from the ceiling by a thick chain. The kettle is empty. So we are in this room, and it looks as if it has just been abandoned by people. The only thing possibly of interest are these utensils, but I don't really know or think that we need to be investigating and trying to see whether there's anything in this environment per se. But what we do need to do is to roll and figure out a little bit more about this room. And here's where we go to the table that will help us do that. This is the DM portion of the D&D basic rules, stocking the dungeon. We're going to roll a d6 and determine some features, some basic information about the room based on this roll. I guess I'll try to do this. We got a 1. So I'm not happy with that rolling, but I'll figure it out. So on a roll of 1 to 2, there is going to be a monster here. There's also going to be a trap. Unfortunately, the room will be devoid of treasure. So now we need to see what we do and how we deal with the monster situation. What I've done here is taken the monster manual that comes in the D&D basic rules and gone through it and selected monsters that felt appropriate potentially to this setting. I hadn't looked through the setting entirely, but I eliminated, for example, things that were very much wilderness based. So you'll see here this black bear is not keyed to a number. I'm going to be able to use a D6 and a D8 to get all my monster rolls, and the D6 is going to suffice to be the 10's value, and the D8 will be the 1's value. So we're basically going to be rolling values from 11 to 68 minus the values you can't get, like 19 and 20, for example. So let us roll, and again, so the lowest value being 11. Let us roll to see what monster there's going to be here. And per what I just described to you, it's going to be Monster 12. We actually happen to be right on this page. Monster 12 are giant bats. Giant bats are flying around, appropriately so, this empty, desiccated kitchen that has just been left, perhaps in a haste, perhaps not, as things crumble around. There are bats flying ahead. Now, I am trying to figure out, and this is something that I'm still working on, how I will determine how many monsters there are in any given situation. And part of the difficulty is that I selected just monsters from every level. These are various level monsters. We're on level 1 of this dungeon. The bats are possibly a level 1 anyway, but I could have rolled, for example, up an ogre if I had rolled a 46, who per these rules is really like a level 4 monster. Per these rules, you could have any number appearing 1 to 6. I can't obviously have my first level party with their elderly cleric at 3rd level encountering 6 ogres in the very first encounter. It would be over. So what I'm experimenting with right now, I will bring in from the top of the desk here, these tiles. These come from the D&D board game Ravenloft, and they read on them either 1, 2, 3, or 0 monsters. There's about a 30% chance of 0 monsters here. I'm going to be using these to determine how many of these monsters there actually are. Now, the 0 ones are in here because at one point I thought I would use this for the Wandering Monster stack. I decided not to do that, so if we pull in a 0, I think for now we're just going to skip it. If I pull in a 3, one of those 3 is going to be an NPC. The other thing I'm still trying to figure out is how NPCs come into play, and let me just show you what I've done here. In going through the monster manual here, some of what is listed as a monster are actually, in my opinion, going to be NPCs. So for example, there's your doppelganger. I've indicated that's an N3. So the NPC role, I think there are 8 of them, possibly 9, that I have keyed. So let's see, where are the rest of them? Here's one, an elf is N5. So it's going to be, there are going to be some NPCs, so there's going to be that possible interaction, that just a determination that I made before I started that I wanted there to be some of them. I'm not sure. Perhaps it will be, if I pulled in a 0 monster, that would equal an NPC. Maybe that would be a way to do it, to get some of them in. So if it says 3 monsters, 1 will be an NPC. If it says 0, that's going to mean an NPC. I don't really know. It's in flux. I haven't done this before. Nevertheless, we're going to pull this first tile up and see that it says 1 monster. So we are just facing here, well, again, thematically, it doesn't exactly make sense, because are you ever going to see just 1 bat? I've never just seen 1 bat when I've seen bats. But let's go back and read what, these are just normal bats. And it says normal bats will not attack men, but may confuse them by flying around their heads. There must be at least 10 bats to confuse 1 character. Characters who are confused will have a penalty of -2 on their 2-hit rolls and saving throws, and cannot cast spells. Normal bats must check morale each round unless they are controlled or summoned. Well, in this particular case, we will say that there's one group of 10 bats, and they could be confusing a character, but the question is, there's really nothing else to encounter here. So we don't need to do an additional wandering monster roll, because, well, you know what? We actually do. We're meant to roll for a wandering monster every 2 turns, and we rolled the first time because of that setback, but we actually need to do that again. So let's see, is there a wandering monster coming? And there is. So we're going to have this penalty. Characters who are confused will have a penalty of -2 on their 2-hit rolls and saving throws, and cannot cast spells. All right, so we are standing here. We're in this decrepit, smelly kitchen with the smelly, moldy cheese. Bats are flying around, and in the confusion, we hear a sound in the distance. What is it? What is that sound in the distance? Well, it's a wandering monster. We're in a dungeon, and it's a wandering monster. It's wandering monster number 27. And let's see, who is wandering around, maybe coming to the kitchen to try to get some food. It is a gnoll. A gnoll. Well, gnolls are beings of low intelligence that appear to be human-like hyenas. They may use any weapons. They are strong, but dislike work and prefer to bully and steal for a living. Well, you know, that's why they're coming to this kitchen. They're lazy. They're going to eat whatever they can. For every 20 gnolls encountered, while we're not doing that, 1 will be a leader, etc. Gnolls are rumored to be the result of a magical combination of a gnome and a troll by an evil magic user. Interesting. We're going to pull up from this stack to see how many of these gnolls that we get. It says 0. We're going to just discard that, because it's definitely going to be a gnoll and not an NPC at this point. Just 1. A lone gnoll has come into the kitchen. We are struggling to fend off these bats. Our magic user is going to be out of it. He can't cast any spells. And now we're going to have our first encounter. So what we need to do, the first thing we need to do, is to determine how far away is this gnoll from us, because we do have a ranged ability, and so we need to know that. Let me get to the distance. So for distance, what you're doing is you're rolling 2d6s, which I don't seem to have handy. A moment. Here we go. All right, for distance, you're rolling 2d6s times 10 to get your distance. So we've got, it's 50 feet away. This gnoll is 50 feet away. It's a big kitchen. We're in the corner of it. And let's just find where we have the weapon range situation here. So we remind ourselves that somebody is carrying, I think it's a longbow. Yes, our thief. Our thief. Well, our thief knows very well that people steal food. So he's at the ready. He's got his longbow, and his distance, his range, what did we say, it was 50 feet away. So that's actually at short range for him, because he's got a +1 to the range within that distance. And this is good for us. So he's got a +1 on that. So I think our thief is going to be the one who's going to be taking action here. But as this is the first round, what we need to do is we need to roll for surprise and see whether either side is surprised. And this is something that you're going to be doing on the first round instead of initiative. So we make 2 rolls. On a 1 to 2, either side can be surprised. So we're rolling right now for ourselves. And I guess I could shorten this up by doing the simultaneous roll, but I don't have the 2 dice right now. So our roll for surprise is a 4. We are not surprised. We're dealing with these bats, but we're not surprised. What about this knoll? Nope, the knoll's not surprised either. So with nobody surprised, this cancels each other out. Now we're going to roll for initiative, and we need to roll. The higher number is going to get initiative, and I don't have 2 d6s, but it doesn't really matter. We're going to take 2 d8s. We are going to be the blue, and the knoll is going to be the green. The higher number is going to gain initiative here, and that is going to be this knoll. So for the first round of combat, the knoll has initiative and is going to be dealing with us. And let's get back to the knoll and take a closer look at what he's going to do. But before we do that, in my haste to get going here, I failed to do something very important, which is to indicate my party order. So what I'm going to do is, this is my party, and I've got these 4 randomizer chits from another game, and I'm just going to randomly assign them. I don't know what is what, and randomly assign them to these folks. And this is going to be the order that they are entering this kitchen in. So the wizard here is going to be the closest in, and that's unfortunate because this knoll, being kind of dumb, is just going to go for the first and closest, and unfortunately that's going to be the wizard. So I've got the wizard and the fighter behind him. That's pretty good, and my thief and my cleric. Now, again, as I said at the beginning, I'm not using minis here. This is for a lot of reasons. I mean, the primary one is I don't really have a ton of minis. Anything I'm using in my games, I'm just kind of appropriating from other games, and you've seen a lot of these things before in the past, and a lot of the little things I have aren't even specifically fantasy themed. So that's one reason. And the other reason is that in doing something like this, it is very much in your mind, the storytelling, or in my mind, the storytelling for me works that way. And I'm picturing this kitchen. I'm picturing the smell of this cheese on the table. And speaking of a table, there's going to be a table there, but are we going to be behind it? I don't know. In any event, so I'm not setting up minis, and that's just the way that it is, but I do need to have some sense of where the characters are in the room, precisely for the reason right now, because we're going to come in and we are going to take a look at this knoll and remind ourselves that they are beings of low intelligence that appear to be human-like, hyenas. They may use any weapons. They are strong. We already read this, so I don't have to do it again. They are going to be they have some weapon. I guess it's not really specified what they have. In this case, we have just one of them. They're going to be some treasure. That's great. And they're using hit dice of 2. That's going to be 2 d8s. Their AC is 5. And to do combat here, let's pull back now and take a look at how that works. There's a very handy monster reaction table with a 2d6 roll. So let's see what this knoll is going to do. We rolled a 5. And he's going to be hostile and possibly attacking us. And let's go back and read about this guy. I think he's going to be likely to attack us. Low intelligence, any weapons, strong. Yeah, it's very likely he's going to attack us. We can
pull in this basic percentile table, and I'm going to say it's very likely that we're going to get attacked here, but we'll do the roll anyway, and let's see what we get. We got, yes, very likely, obviously. All right, so he's coming at us, and he's going to be coming at the nearest, and that is the wizard. This is not going to be good for the wizard right now, because the gnoll needs to roll an 8 or greater on a d20 to have a successful hit, and he rolls a 17. So he's going to hit, and he's going to do 1d8 plus 1 of damage to the wizard, and our wizard is going to be seriously in trouble because he's only got 3 hit points. So this is not looking good right now, and he is out. The wizard is down. He is out. In this game, I didn't talk about death and things like that. I'm going with a kind of stun, unconscious situation where somebody can be revived after a certain period of time. Now, you will recall that right now we're running in this unit of 7 here, so it's going to be a long way before the wizard can come back in any meaningful way. But he's out. He's stunned by this attack from this gnoll, and we are going to respond, and respond we shall. The fighter is going to act next. He is, well, you know what? Actually, it's going to be the thief. The thief is going to draw his longbow back, and he's going to get a bunch of modifiers on this. He's going to get a +2 for his dexterity. He's going to get a +1 for the close range, and he's going to draw this back, and the gnoll here is at an AC of 5. So what we're looking for here is we need to get a 14 or greater, and we're rolling this with a modifier of 3 to our roll. So 13, 14, 15, 16, we're going to land a hit, and we're going to be doing 1d6 worth of damage on this gnoll from the fighter, who has drawn back his weapon and shot into the gnoll's side for a damage of 4. And the gnoll's health, let's see, his health is going to be something that I should have figured out before. It's going to be a 2d8 worth of health. So let's see, how strong is this guy? Great, he's only a 6, and we just landed 5 points of damage on him, so he's actually already down to 1 health. He's weakened, and we're going to definitely do a morale check on him to see if he is going to continue fighting or if he's going to slink away. To do a morale check, we look at the morale value. He's got a high morale, actually, of 8, and we are rolling 2d6s on that, and if we roll greater than the morale, he's going to try to retreat. And showing you here from the rules, just to come in back to the rules for a moment, the DM part of the rules, it says that you can check morale after the side's first death in combat, or when half of the monsters have been incapacitated. For example, in this case, I decided to check it because we landed a blow that basically brought it down to just 1 health in the first round of combat. So I think that that would be warranting a morale check. So we are looking to roll for this monster to retreat. We've got to roll a 9 or greater. Otherwise, he's going to keep coming at us. And in fact, he is. He's tenacious, and he's coming back at us again, even though he's only got the 1 health. And at this point, he's turning his attention to our cleric. The old cleric, the hyena troll mixture, can sense an elderly being in its midst, and it's going to lunge at the cleric here, and it's going to do so and need a 13 or higher to land a wound on the cleric, bypassing the already unconscious wizard. He misses with a 6. And our fighter now is going to run in with his sword drawn and rolling with a +2. He's looking for a 15 or greater to hit that gnoll, and indeed, actually, he just needed a 14 or greater, and he got it, even without the modifier. So he is going to thrust his sword into the side of the gnoll. I don't even need to roll for it because the gnoll only had the 1 damage point left. The gnoll falls to the ground, bleeding out. right next to the still stunned wizard, and the cleric now is going to come and attempt a healing action on this on his companion, the wizard. He's got the Cure Light Wounds spell, and we will turn to this to see how this works. This is going to heal 1d6 plus 1 of damage done to any living creature. Now, remember, we are out. He can't be cast on himself. It's not going to increase the creature's hit point total to more than the normal amount. So we're going to be rolling a 1d6 plus 1 as this particular spell to give our wizard back some of his HP. We rolled a 5. That's nice. Unfortunately, our wizard started out with a pretty low, only started out with a 3. So he's restored. He gets up, he's woozy, and he shakes the hand of his fellow traveler, and they look around this room. They're going to be examining the body of the gnoll, who has some treasure on him for sure, and then moving on. Now, I do want to take you through what the rules would have the treasure be. I think if I were to continue on with this, I would probably do something a little simpler and just roll on some treasure table. But we have here treasure type D. You can see this in the description here. So you go to the treasure type table and you go to the relevant line, and what you're doing is you are rolling on this as the DM, and it's a percentage number. So if you roll you roll on every column here. So this is, we could see there's a 10% chance there's 1d8 worth of 1,000 copper. So what we would be doing is we would be rolling this, and we didn't get any copper, and we would sort of go through and roll on all of this. So let's just see what we get. We got no silver, no chance of electrum. There's a 60% chance of gold, and indeed, I don't know if you can see that we rolled a 48. So then we would roll our d6, and we would have 5,000 gold pieces on this gnoll. And gems and jewelry, there's going to be a 30% chance of that. Here, I'll just do it in here so you can, whoops, yeah, the dice thing is not good. No gems and jewelry, and magic items. Only a 15% chance of magic items, and just missed it. Just missed it. So had we done that, we would have just gotten some gold. When I'm doing something like this, and I want to, well, just in general, I'm always more interested in having items, even if they're just trinkets or something, because it helps me with the story. And you saw that I rolled and gave them some trinkets at the beginning. We sort of dropped out from talking about that, but that sort of helps to form the story coming together. So what I would be doing is I would be finding a different type of treasure D100 table from another set. I could try to stick with D&D or go to the Tome of Adventure Design or something like that and roll on that to get some things to carry, because those are the kinds of things, the items, the treasure, the magic trinkets even, that you can weave together as your party accumulates them to form the story. And so with that, we are going to be leaving the kitchen area and moving on. And the way that I would be playing this out is simply then to walk them into the next room, which is the dining room and a lounge. And going through room 5 here is the wizard's chamber. So that is a look inside, a way of taking an existing module and the source material that is contemporary to it, in this case very early D&D, with this module B1, and playing it out as a solo experience without really having to use too many other apparatus to support it. I recommend, as I said, perhaps deviating from the type of just basic gold treasure and moving to items, magic items, even if they're just trinkets, something that is going to be suggestive to you of a story, something that if you accumulate, we've got this, we had the hilt of a sword, for example. I think that's what it was, fragment of a sword. You're getting perhaps to a magic place. that perhaps starts a story in your head.